Recording in progress.
Good morning, dear brothers and sisters. And thank you, Trid, for this wonderful opportunity to share a few thoughts with you this morning. You probably have to either mute yourselves. I hear from my end a little bit of an echo. I don't know if it is my speaker or if it is your computers. Anybody? Okay, that must have been from Trid. Okay. All right. Well, my intention this morning is, as I said, to share some thoughts on this ever increasing in understanding topic of the oneness of life, and how do we open to this reality that is within us already, but from the outer surface of our being we are still trying to realize her at a deeper and more deeper and deeper level. So my plan for this time together is to explore a little bit, just briefly, just because the time will not allow us to go further, and we will all get pretty bored talking about the same thing for a long time. We are familiar with the Theosophical worldview, but it will be very pertinent to our time together to review it together, to read it, and from that hardcore philosophy unfold the rest of our time together. I would like to explore a little bit together the nature of individuality and the purpose of our human evolution, which go hand in hand, right? I would like to also share some thoughts about my understanding on the path toward that oneness, and a few thoughts and ways by which we can become more sensitive and aware of this reality of life. And I would like to end with a meditation by our beloved Last Joy Mills on listening to the Song of Life, which is found in a wonderful little book that was published by the Quest bookstore a while ago. And this book is Commentaries on Light on the Path. It is titled Entering on the Sacred Way by Joy Mills. If you don't have it with you, what I am going to do after the talk comes to an end, I would send an email to try it with some resources, and this meditation will be included so that you can share it or you can use it further in your own personal inquiry and contemplations. So let us get into the heart of our time together today. And all we are aware that the very heart and essence of Theosophy is this fundamental oneness. That's what we believe, at least ideal, as our higher idea, or our highest ideal. And that is the reason why we have decided consciously to become a member of this unique organization. Many people are attracted to the other two objects, but it so happens that I have experienced that the people who come and is drawn to the Theosophical Society, resonating with the first object, are those members who stay for life in an organization. And you've probably experienced it from your own lodges, but that has been my reality. I also send you greetings from the heart of Olcott. I happen to live here on the grounds, and many of you have visited this beautiful place, and I hope that those who haven't can come back next year for our summer convention, who will be in person. So that is basically what we believe, and we try to promote this fundamental truth of existence, of the oneness of life. And let us think for a moment on the point in evolution where human beings happen to find themselves right now, which is the point of most isolation. And why is it that we find ourselves most isolated? Let us have a little bit of a review of the Theosophical worldview, and from there we will explore this fundamental question together. And if you have any questions along the way, by all means, raise your hand or just unmute yourself and add your contributions or share your questions, and we will explore them further in. So the Theosophical worldview presents us with three fundamental ideas. It postulates, this tradition is founded on these fundamental propositions. The universe and all that exists within it are one interrelated and interdependent whole. Every existent being, from atom to galaxy, is rooted in the same universal, life-creating reality. This reality is all-pervasive, but it can never be summed up in its parts, since it transcends all expressions, is beyond any manifestation. It reveals itself in the purposeful, ordered, and meaningful processes of nature, as well as in the deepest recesses of the mind and spirit. And lastly, a third statement that says, the recognition of the unique value of every living being expresses itself in reverence for life, compassion for all, sympathy for the need of all individuals to find truth for themselves, and respect for all religious traditions. The ways in which these ideals become realities in individual life are both the privileged choice and the responsible act of every human being. So back to this idea of the individuality, right? And the isolation of human being, and within that isolation, we find ourselves finding, reconnecting, and evolving from that center. So furthermore, it says, a center to the concerns of Theosophy is the desire to promote understanding and unity among people of all races, nationalities, philosophies, and religions. Therefore, all people, whatever their race, creed, sex, caste, or color, are invited to participate equally in the life and work of the society. The Theosophical Society imposes no dogmas, but points toward, and this is an important word, it points us toward the source of unity behind all differences. Devotion to truth, love for all beings, and commitment to a life of active altruism are the marks of the true Theosophist. So by no means it says that we need to have come to a profound realization and experience of this oneness in order to be a member of the Theosophical Society, by no means, but at least in our hearts have a profound sympathy and reverence for that ultimate truth. Some of us are already enthroned or aware of this reality, but some of us are also, at least at the level of the intellectual part of our being, trying to make that reality a living force in our lives. And both paths are equally important, and whatever we happen to be, no matter where we happen to be, we are all leading toward the same goal. So let us explore a little bit further this nature of isolation. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the introductory course of Theosophy that John Algeo was the latest person that edited it, and it became a little bit more accessible in more modern terms to all the special beginning members or new members to the Theosophical Society. But if you are not familiar, I would be very happy to share that PDF with you, which can also be found on our website of the Theosophical Society in America. And so there is a beautiful statement in that particular manual, and it reads, "In the human kingdom, life has reached its most divisive divisive, and separated state. Earlier kingdoms of life, such as animal, vegetable, and mineral, consist of beings that are more connected with each other than human beings are. The beings of those kingdoms, however, lack conscious awareness of their connections. Humans, on the other hand, are self-conscious and therefore aware of their own separation. The price of self-consciousness is isolation itself. But the value of self-consciousness is that it permits us to escape from our isolation and to enter a world of connectedness. Any thoughts on this statement? Just take a moment to take it in and, ponder about this fundamental, not only reality, but process of the soul becoming human and culminating that process of being human and moving on to the next stage in evolution. That is profoundly mysterious. Any thoughts on this? It's okay to hold silence. It's perfectly fine, because we are trying to ponder about it. Deep down, we are nothing but speculating about this purpose of God, and the best way to understand it is to take it in and to make it our own understanding. And later on, perhaps later in the evening, in another moment, you can go deeper into this particular reality that we are sharing. And I won't call it reality, but let us call it statement. And, break it down and see how we resonate with these words on our own.
I actually have a comment on that. So you mentioned that the human kingdom actually reaches highest in the individuality, right? So I think in addition to that is not so much that it reached the highest in individuality, but also is the conscious awareness that as a human being, you are an individual, as opposed to the animals or the plants. They're not consciously aware that they are a plant or an animal. They act in a group manner. So I think each one of us as a human, like you say, is now consciously aware that we are now an individual.
Yes.
That's the only comment I have.
Thank you. Very, very much so. Very much so. And this is why it is so important to not take this, not only individuality, but this human life for granted. Because it is in this stage of being human where we can only become aware of this reality. I mean, after we finish this realm of existence as human beings, there are other tasks for us to fulfill. So this is our task on earth, this great realization. So, and this is in fact our most important human task, for, as I just said, from one incarnation to another, to rediscover and re-experience this holistic spiritual dimension of our being until the illusory boundaries of separateness is dissolved. It is there for a reason, to make us conscious, but it is also a total illusion. It only happens in between human beings and the cosmos for a particular reason, but everything else that exists and breathes lives in this universe is a part of this oneness of life. So let us go a little bit deeper if there is not any further question or comment. I'll pause here for a little moment into exploring the nature of individuality itself. Any further thoughts? Should we move onward? Okay. So I'm sure, I won't assume that every one of you, but I'm sure that many of you are familiar with the little precious book, Light on the Path. And that book not only is one of my favorites, but I think that that book brings light into an amazing realization that that happens when we begin to tread this path of reality, of spirituality, and that is becoming aware of the whole process of evolution and where we are heading toward as human beings and as universe as a whole, all the kingdoms before us and all the kingdoms above us. So there is a quote from Light on the Path that reads, "The whole nature of men must be used wisely by the one who desires to enter the way. Each man is to himself absolutely the way, the truth, and the life. But he is only so when he grasps his whole individuality firmly, and by the force of his awakened spiritual will, recognizes this individuality as not himself, but that thing which he has with pain created for his own use and by means of which he purposes. As his growth slowly develops his intelligence to reach to the life beyond individuality, when he knows that for this wonderful, complex, separate life exists, then indeed, and then only, he is upon the way." There's a beautiful statement, isn't it? Profoundly beautiful. That requires further, of course, pondering and inquiry into, but as an example to say that there is a purpose to this individuality, and once we have achieved this individuality, that we realize through that individuality that it is not separate from everything that exists, then we take a new step in our evolution. And it is only through this complex, separate life that we can then take the next step. And then we only are then upon the path and the way. So the path and the way has been interpreted, or have been interpreted in many ways. Some people call it the spiritual path. Some people call it, the inner life. Some people call it following a specific discipline or guru. There are many perspectives in what we call the way or the path. My understanding of it is that the path is life and evolution itself. We are upon the path the moment we are conceived and birthed into this world. And the life of a human being completely from incarnation, the moment of birth, to the moment of what we call death or birth into the spiritual world again, is a journey of initiation over and over and over again until we achieve our final goal as human beings. And underneath it all is that purpose of this realization. And every time we come back over and over and over again, this purpose is given to us. To what extent we are able to fulfill it, to what extent we are able to deeply understand it and live by this reality, is really up to each one of us to work on. And out of our own will, as it says, we grasp this purpose with our own spiritual will and recognizes it, then acts upon that, then things begin to happen from there. So my point of view of this path toward oneness is twofold. First, as I said, we must realize it in our own lives, see it with our eyes and feel it with our own hearts. And if we are not able to be genuinely imbued by it, at least intellectually, try to grasp the understanding of it. And once this truth has been perceived, we must act upon it. So it's the realization of it as well as acting upon this reality. Otherwise, there is nothing we can do with an intellectual idea. It is not transformative if we are not able to put it into practice in our own daily lives. So we expect that at some point, many of the people who come across these teachings are able to really transform themselves and to practice it. Because these are not teachings to delight the intellect. These are teachings to transform. These are teachings to serve humanity with through that transformation, and to help humanity uplift and realize, therefore, this same goal. But as I said, we don't necessarily act by these principles all the time. Absolutely not. It is very inspired to contemplate this ideal in our meditations, in our studies. But when it comes to actually live it, sometimes we find ourselves acting in such ways as to deny this oneness at all levels of our personality's behavior. And this is where we find ourselves in that part of ourselves where we have to continuously work, especially at the level of our feelings and at the level of our thoughts. How different will the world be if we also made this ideal the fundamental principles of a social organism, of an economical and political renewal system? Wouldn't that be marvelous? And we try, we hope, we pray, we send thoughts into the world for that to happen. But it takes an effort, an extraordinary effort. There are many quotes out there that says, only take one individual to change the world. But I question that thought. It may take that individual to change his own or her own world. Relatively speaking, that might be, some people may say that that's the only world there is, but it isn't the reality. Our individual worlds are nothing but sparks or little, portions of a greater reality. So it takes many. It takes children. It takes mothers, fathers, adults of all kinds, elderly people. It takes all of us. And I say to myself that there is a power that brings about this radical change in society that is beyond and simpler than just bringing it at the level of our political and economic system. And this is the extraordinary power that lies in our loving relationships, in true friendship, in selflessly serving one another. It starts there. It ultimately, the power lies in the heart of our individual families. It is hidden there, at the heart and the core of our family life. Even if we don't read deep theosophical texts to find out what it is all about, which is only theory and postulates and hypotheses for us to contemplate and to expand and stimulate our mental thoughts and our mental realm, to evolve our minds. If they don't become reality, once again, it is dull just at that level. So the experience of oneness starts at home from childhood itself. Isn't it true that the children don't learn about oneness by reading books? The children don't learn about oneness only by taking them to the school. And lucky them if they go to an education system that promotes these noble ideals. This oneness begins by the way in which the parents, the grandparents, live, treat each other, solve problems, behave themselves, feel, think, because these are things that the children from day one begin to imitate. And it is something that they sense at the level of their senses, but then they are inspired by this when they grow a little bit older, later on become their ideals, and ultimately their own religion by which they live their lives deep down in their hearts. And I'm sure that many of you sweethearts sitting in the back row over there, you should be sitting in the foreground. And I am not sure if you can resonate with my words, but I am sure that many of you, when you grow a little bit older, will remember some of these thoughts. So there is not a better training in brotherhood than what goes on in the heart of our individual family life. We live so close to each other that we forget to see the true value of our relationships. And I say this because truly, and not to get into any particular details about this horrible pandemic situation, I truly believe that the pandemic brought things into perspective, in the sense that it allowed us to step back from each other and to recognize the presence of the other at a deeper level. Even to realize the importance of the connection that we have with each other. Much deeper. Because sometimes we are so close to each other in our daily lives, even at home, that we take it for granted. The importance of us being together. And the importance of gazing into somebody's eyes. You know, many of us had our faces covered, and all you could see, or all you could do, was to gaze into somebody else's soul by looking and smiling with your eyes. That's all it was left. And so, you know, it brings me to tears, because I taught on those circumstances for almost 2 years. And all I could do was just to look at my students through that. And the parents, some parents were so grateful that we were able to be in person together. But there were some people that still didn't get it. It was painful. But then, you know, the rules and regulations changed. And many of these people understood the need, the necessity. But those people who did not understand had no feeling whatsoever, no compassion for the need of those who needed to be masked. You see, those who needed to protect each other, sometimes not even just to protect themselves, but to protect others about them, elderly people that were at home. So all these things brought us to that understanding of the connection and how far our connection goes. Yeah. So it is there at the heart of our family that we begin to practice this. There was a time in my life where I was very active with the prison program here at the Theosophical Society. And there was a year in which one of our students was discharged from prison after being about 16 years in prison. And I traveled to New Jersey. This was in 2013, I believe. I traveled to New Jersey to meet him in person. And it was an amazing experience. It was incredible. I was his corresponding mentor for a number of years. But what brought me to New York that weekend was also to visit with my brother and spend Christmas together. So it was just one of those very meaningful trips that you take in your life. And after meeting this brother in person, that weekend itself, I went to church, to Mass, and it so happened that the priest that was giving the sermon that weekend said something, all the Mass was about family life and finding God within the family life. And he said very few words that I've always stuck to my heart. He said that the family is not sacred for its own sake, but because the work of God is within it. It isn't that true? How is it that karma somehow finds its way to bring us together, to fulfill not only our duties as a family, to bring us into being, parents bringing children through them into the world, but also to work our karmas together. And by family, I also include our friends, our foes, and those people who we just simply don't understand. Let's put it that way. So yes, that was a statement that I am still living by, because I see it reflected in my own family. I am not the same, or don't share the same belief systems nor spiritual practices as the rest of my family, yet we are able to share, to help one another, to serve one another in ways that go and transcend our personal preferences. And I am not sure, I wonder if this is a moment that we can pause and explore this a little bit, because I know that many of you are very family oriented, especially the Indian brothers that we have, and you from Asia are really family oriented people. How do you experience this reality in your own homes? Children are welcome to participate. I'm sorry, I got a little teary, but I'm sure that yeah, if there is any teacher here with us talking about this, it really brings you to tears to speak about it. I see some comments back there. Someone talking. You're welcome to unmute yourselves and share. By all means, please go right ahead.
Yeah, they're shaking their head.
That's okay. That's okay. This is a beautiful example of what we transmit to our children. Your family has been so close together, and I have seen you for so many generations, so many years. And you bring your children to the summer conventions, and you're always close to each other and do this together. That is so admirable and so inspiring, very inspiring. I wish many families could do the same thing. It so happens that, there are many families that have children, and children are not inclined to Theosophy. And you wonder why. What a mystery. You say, well, I guess that we all have our own choices. But I truly believe that if Theosophy and these noble ideals are lived and practiced in our home, there is a 100% likelihood that our children not only will be made by that, but also bring that into their lives as their greatest gift. When they look back, they will thank our parents for inculcating these amazing morals in their personality and character. That is the most important thing to educate the human being by.
Yeah, we actually look forward to the Summer National Convention, and over the pandemic is kind of like the kid been telling us that they missed the opportunity to visit the Alcott and
Oh,
Chicago, actually.
I know the grounds are so beautiful right now. Next year, I'm sure that they will be much more beautiful. You guys can play outdoors and, enjoy nature and the birds and all the beautiful things that these lovely grounds share with everyone. So anyhow, as I said,
I have something to say. When you
Go ahead,
mentioned,
Karina. Oh, thank you, dear.
when you mentioned destiny, karma brings us together and we form a family. But then we, at the age of 22, immigrated to Canada from India. So we left our parents and grandparents, and when we were supposed to be there to be with them and learn things from them, we came here. And then we have our children, and now they have gone even as far as Hong Kong from Toronto.
Wow.
So what happens to this family unit? We are still close to each other. We love and care, and even sometimes technical support. I call Hong Kong to give me tech support. So that relationship is there. But really, what are we doing for each other? It's just me and my husband here.
That's an interesting question. Do you want to explore it together? That is a very interesting question because that happens to almost every family.
Right.
We bring the children about and they fly out of their nests.
As we flew.
Yes, as we flew, right? I say as we flew. I don't have children of my own, but I have students and I can totally relate to that feeling the moment the parents bring them into our school for the very first day. Here you are. They turn around tearful and, a whole new step in their lives begin. But to your point, Farida, pardon me, I truly believe that those connections are never lost. And life is built out of those intervals that one takes to the other. That one thing takes to the next or lead us to the next. Sometimes we feel that we've spent a number of years in a place. We've done a great sacrifice. We've made our place our own. We've made this beautiful community about us. And all of a sudden, life moves us to a different place. And we say all that effort and energy that we have put into this, and now it is all gone. Is it truly gone? Or is it that is leading us to the next step in our lives? And isn't that true that along the way we have to practice the detachment of feeling that requires for us to continue to evolve? And our encounters are, of course, mother and father, temporary of a lifetime. Although in the next incarnation, this is a whole subject in itself, we may re-encounter ourselves, but not necessarily as a mother and daughter, perhaps. It could be totally different dynamic. So there is a great mystery on how is that we come into encounter with each other. But it is the moment, the precious present moment that we share that makes those differences. And the instant that we are sharing, whatever is that we are doing, what is transforming, healing our karmic relationships. And it is the opportunity of the present moment. It's not the opportunity of the tomorrow. It's the opportunity of the present moment to work that out, to recognize it if all is well, but also recognize it and act upon it if differences and healing needs to be brought into that relationship. Because it so happens that those relationships that are not healed, then in the next lifetime, God arranges the world in such a way that we are placed in certain circumstances for us to learn that lesson. And there is basically that's all there is to it. We learn the lessons together and we move to the next thing. And God surrounds us with either a new family or a new community to learn, to share, to serve, to love each other, and to evolve. We move on and we move on. Onward and upward. Isn't that true? That's what the phrase says, literally speaking. Literally speaking. Yeah? And so it is the part of us that gets very attached to things, to people, that is not able to see the goal of where we are going. And when we are away from those who brought us into being, who loved us into being, we should spend time of quiet and be grateful, practice gratitude. I don't think that forgetting, or I don't think that remembering necessarily has to be a painful experience of attachment. I think that remembering can be a profound feeling of gratitude. We don't have to evolve through pain. We can evolve through gratitude and love. There are many paths, you see, and everywhere we go, we become a source of light and harmony. And so leaving things behind, that doesn't mean that we have failed or given up. Leaving things behind, that means that we have grown. It's like a plant that you're going to transplant into a bigger pot or into a greater garden. And so the pot doesn't serve us any further. And so our roots take hold in a bigger space. I don't know if we find ourselves in that place. And I don't know if you, Farida, can relate to these feelings. But the fact that your roots are right now, not roots, but I would say your physical presence doesn't find itself in India right now, that doesn't mean that a part of you is not Indian anymore. You bring it with you. This is all part of our biography. And the greatest thing and the greatest gift we can give to the world is our biography, isn't it? With all in it. Yes?
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So it is said that the duty of a father is to make their children independent and leave home. Because all of us have to leave home so that we can build new families. And we have different life stages whereby when you're a child, a teenager, a young adult, you start a family, and at some point, you have all the kids leave home, and then you have an empty nest. And these stages have all got their own challenges.
Yeah.
That as a parent we have to deal with. But I think it's important that we do as much as possible for our children, at the same time make sure that they become independent.
That is true. Thank you so much, John. It is so difficult to see that when it is our own children, isn't it? But it is true that there are three things that we need to make sure that our children feel, or to make sure that we are doing while we are educating our children. And the first thing, in my opinion, is that the children need to build a strong sense of self, to your point of being independent, right? They need to be self-directed individuals and have this very healthy and harmonious to the extent they can, because to the extent we can, because a part of building this beautiful personality and part of ourselves is not just the task of the parents. Part of it is but it is their own duty, as well as, you know, the environment, the school, and all their own social life that meets their destiny later on in life. So we can do our part, put it that way. We can do our part to let them know and feel that they are unconditionally loved. And we can do our part also in making them resilient, very, very, very flexible in learning, very, very, very flexible as much as possible in encountering the experiences of life, sad and happy, challenging and not so challenging, and yet have the courage to embrace that destiny every step of the way. We can teach that to our children, and you say, how? They learn it through imitation. So it puts us in a place, in a very challenging place, right? Because sometimes it is not so much through words and advice. The children are watching us, and they say, well, my father is telling me, said, walk the talk, but not what I do, you know, just do as I say, but not as I do. But, you know, children have a very genuine heart. They have a genuine, transparent soul, and they see through our genuineness as well. So that is what truly teaches them. And the other aspect of it that perhaps we don't talk so much about is what lives in our mental atmosphere and our feeling atmosphere at home. That nourishes them, that nourish their mental and astral body to the extent that they begin, you know, to have their own feelings and thoughts, individually, healthy or not, depending on what we are able to shift them with, you know. And so it is a big responsibility, but only for a time being. Yeah, only for a time being, and making sure that they are comfortable building that individuality for themselves is so important from the beginning, from the very beginning. Because later on we are adults that we are not comfortable in our own skins, you know. And how can you go back and correct or relearn all of this? Is very difficult. It is really difficult to do that in only one lifetime when you have just so many more years of life ahead of us. Of course, the realization of that will help us to come into our next incarnation with better disposition for life and more open and so forth. But it is that opportunity from lifetime to lifetime to embrace these principles and you know, to make them our own as deep as possible through education as well, of course. And let us continue this dynamic of family. As I say, it gets very personal, and it gets pretty earthy and mundane at times. But truly, if we are not able to see what is above in what the reality that is practiced here below, we cannot relate to these principles and concepts. They are way beyond us. So they are here now among ourselves. And it is within those ordinary moments, I say, and those moments when we interact with each other, when we say to each other, thank you, I am sorry, excuse me, forgive me, yes, no, I trust you, how can I help you, are you all right, I hear you, I see you, I feel you, I understand you, I disagree, I forgive you, I love you. When I remain silent, utterly silent, that we open ourselves to oneness, to the other. Sri Ram, one of our past international presidents, said, "Let the kingdom of our hearts be so wide that no one is excluded." Let the kingdom of our heart be so wide that no one is excluded. And that doesn't mean really that we need to agree with everybody. Sameness is not a matter of oneness. Diversity, differences, appearing differences. Of course, we are talking about the manifested world, the things that appear to be separate for the time being and for a purposeful mean. Sameness is not a concept of oneness at that level. Is it how we are able through that diversity pierce through and sense the unity of all life. That is the challenge that God presents before our eyes, an intuition to sense through, to speak with the life that animates the other, that presence, whether it is a plant, whether it is an animal, whether it is a fellow human being. So let me suggest a few simple ways by which we can become more conscious and sensitive to this oneness. I'm sure that you, brothers and sisters from India, can relate to one of the things that I am about to share. There are many Hindus that wake up in the morning with this sense of reverence for life. And I am not a practitioner of Hinduism any longer. I studied it for a while and I revere Hinduism with all my heart, but I continue my theosophical practices and embrace other philosophies as well. But I know that many of you, when you wake up in the morning, and as an example, I don't know exactly the mantras and the specific words that you use for this. When people wake up in the morning, many of the Hindus do, they try to stand still for a few seconds or moments as they begin the day, and they breathe mindfully, and they bring their hands to their heart and they pray, and slowly and deeply they try to remember that the same breath and energy that vibrates in our hearts, in their hearts, is the same energy and the same energy that breathes and vibrates in the heart of the whole cosmos. This is something that can be practiced by all of us as well. One time, many a times, in our own words, in our own ways of sensing that reality. And we can hold this feeling in our consciousness for a few seconds or for the rest of our day, for the rest of that given day. And that could be the intention and the first step into our day, into our daily life, from day to day. That is very helpful. It changes the tone. It could be the theme of our meditation if we meditate in the morning. I leave these things quite open because many of us have different practices and routines and rhythms in the morning. But evoking this feeling in our hearts is important, and take the first step into our day with this sense of unity. And try to keep this awareness as much as we can throughout the day while performing even the most trivial of our daily duties and chores, no matter what it is. It could be cooking, it could be grocery shopping, it could be teaching, it could be the life of a doctor. Oh my goodness. Speaking about doctors, what they have to do and deal with. And in any other profession, no matter what it is, it could be the sales profession, any stream of life that we have chosen to be unfulfilled as our professional life can be imbued by this feeling. Also, when we sit at the table and we consume our food, if we can just receive the food that is given to us with that sense of reverence, with that sense of oneness and gratitude for all that nourishes us. In the evening also, try to find a quiet moment before falling asleep and review your day in the light of this spiritual truth, if we are able to do so. You may ask yourself, how brotherly did I act today? How mindful of this one universal reality was I today? In words, feeling, thoughts, and deeds. That doesn't take long, but it takes will to sit down and to want to do this and make it our own practice in our own unique creative ways. Some people fall asleep in this inner journey and review of the day. And it is a good way to go into the spiritual world, inquiring into the lessons that we learned in a given day, because it is there in the spiritual world where these lessons are learned, are assimilated. So this is really important. It's very good exercise, and I encourage us and invite us to explore them. Pardon me. Practice one-mindedness. Open-mindedness as well. One-mindedness is by keeping the oneness as a focus of our consciousness, if that makes sense. Open-mindedness is by opening ourselves to the other, no matter what the other means or can be. And attention, of course, so that we can overcome our prejudices and be open to the true I of the other, to the true essence of the other person. Practice genuine love and kindness and service to others. Absolutely. That is one of the 3 pillars of the Theosophical practice and life. Practice deep soul listening and become aware of the feeling behind the words that have been spoken. This is very, very difficult to do. We are often, and I find myself in this place, often very prompt to give advice. But sometimes to hold space and silence for the other person, just to express their feelings and to be themselves, that is such a kindness act. Not only kindness, is a compassionate act that nourishes and can heal the other person. And in so doing, we train ourselves to listen to a greater call and song of life, that deep soul listening. But we cannot listen to the greater cosmic harmony if we are not able to listen to the need of the person that is beside us. How can we even do that if we are so insensitive to the need of the other right before me? And then we will see, dear brothers and sisters, that a profound feeling of reverence and brotherliness for all will begin to bloom naturally within ourselves, within our hearts. For brotherhood is not the essence of Theosophy alone. It should also be realized as the essence of our own human lives. It is a reality for us to live by. It shouldn't be the ideal of any organization. It should be given to us with the little manual when we are born. We are not born with any manuals of how to be a human being. Thank God to our parents that they teach us a little. I wish every human being was born with a guideline as to the principles that we should be living by. And obviously this should be the principle number 1. Dear children, can you relate to that? Any thoughts or any comments before we close our, or at least the part of my presentation?
Hello, my name is Van Lee. Thank you very much for your very touching presentation, and then a lot of experience that I learned from you. And I know that as your student, I think every one of them that have a touch from your thoughts. So thank you. I think that I have 3 children, and actually when back to the time, I did not know much about the Theosophy. So the way I teach it at the Asian old-fashioned way, it's not very good, but I'm learning. And finally, you know, after I learned Theosophy and I know the way how we teach them the love, it's just like the way you say that, thank you, I love you, or I listen to you, something like that. And it really affects. Myself, you know, I grew up in the family. It's a big family. I have 8 brothers and sisters, and my parents working very, very hard. We live in the very poor family, and I'm learning a lot from that. I learned it from my parents. I learned it from my neighbor, and we're growing up good. And luckily, you know, my kids, when they grow up, they good. I'm happy what they're doing right now. It not only for me, I think it not only the karma from the family, parent, sister, brother, wife, kids. I think it's society. When you work, we do have the karma together.
Absolutely.
I work at the warehouse as a supervisor. I saw so many workers. They don't have much education. They don't have very good family to help them to grow up. But when we talking to them, when we care and try to help them, they're feeling. It's just like whatever you say, I can feel the vibration from you. And that's why I said, you know, whoever in this life, whenever we see the people around us, it's just like a brother come to the meeting. We can feel, we can help, and we can learn together. For me, that is the oneness.
Absolutely. God bless you. I think it is the children that is making me cry. I don't think I have ever given a presentation online with children are present, especially because I've seen these kids back there growing up. Oh, I want to see you next year. You come back to Olco, all of you. Oh, bless their hearts. How precious. I could not agree with you more. I could not agree with you more. And you know, our intellectual status doesn't really define us. You know, it could be the most homeless person there on the street that can teach us the greatest lesson. You know, it could be the person in the grocery store that doesn't look as happy and welcoming. It could be the person, you know, that we can less imagine, you see. And so we have to be pretty open and sensitive. You know, open-minded doesn't mean it's just opening the mind. It is a heart and mind welcoming of life. Yes. Saying that yes, and that acceptance to what is of the other, and feeling connected somehow with that person, no matter what that person is doing and is very difficult to do genuinely. It's very difficult. However, we can practice it. We can't imitate anybody. This is not something that we can do, oh no, because so and so do it this way. This is something that we have to sense in the morning, in the moment. How are we reacting? We are in the presence of this other person. Can we scan our whole being? It reminds me to Brother Vic Haushin, how he does this emotional processing. Can we scan in a second our whole human being and see what part of ourselves is reacting? What part of ourselves is repulsing the other person? One part of ourselves is being activated. And can we breathe out that tension? Can we just let it go? Can we just let go of that and be present in the present moment to the fact, to what is, that we are not going to change because it is not our task to change, to what is because it is. It is for the other because God wills it to be so. And the only thing that we have under our control is our response to that. And yeah, there's nothing else to it but beginning to practice it with interest, with true interest in the other. Brotherhood needs to be practiced among human beings only. Brotherhood doesn't need to practice. It's a fact in nature. It doesn't need to practice beyond. Our physical bodies, our etheric bodies are together all the time. They breathe and have their life within the earthly realm that we share with everything that lives upon the earth. At the etheric level, the formative forces, the etheric forces that giving us and imbuing us with these life forces that we share with everything. It is at the emotional, the mental level where this illusory separateness takes place. Again, for a reason, back to the beginning of our talk, there is a purpose, but through these two bodies of consciousness that are given to us is that we achieve the final goal. We cannot do it when we paralyze the mind. There are some teachings that speak very symbolically about this, but not literal. We cannot kill out our desires, our minds just like that. We have to walk through them, work with them, evolve them, refine them, sublimate them, so they can be sensitive to this, so that they can evolve to this highest spiritual power that we have inside of ourselves. Those are mechanisms of consciousness. We cannot annihilate them. We have to evolve them. The individuality is nothing but the coming together of everything of our being in one consciousness. And that individuality means indivisible. Doesn't mean that we are separate. Individuality means indivisible. But we are incarnated as monads here in this human body for the time being. And so, yeah. Anyhow, well, with that thought, I don't know if someone needs to leave the meeting for any particular reason, but I don't know if this is a good time to share Joy Mill's meditation, or if you want to explore a few more thoughts before we close the meeting with this meditation. I leave it up to you, brother.
Yeah, I was just wondering if anyone else had any questions or comment for Danelys.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If not, you could go ahead and start.
Okay. So let us just withdraw ourselves into that center of peace and oneness and quiet within our hearts, and be open to the words of Joy Mills as she paints with words in such poetic ways the journey of this realization, pretty much from atom to cosmos. Is a delight to bathe ourselves with these inspiring words. Listen to the song of life. Hear it in the mineral kingdom the life in earth, in rock, in stone, in jewel, life held, enchanted, encased, but throbbing, pulsing. Listen to the song of life. Hear the song of life in the vegetable kingdom, in plants, trees, flowers, life beginning to stir, awaken, turn to the sun, reaching out to rain and wind. Life opening itself from within outwards, in the flowering of beauty. Listen to the song of life in the animal kingdom, in the countless insects, in the flight of birds, and in bird song, in all the little creatures of wood and forest, in the animals we have tamed, in the great wild creatures of the earth. Life now awake, delighting in the freedom of movement, sensing, experiencing, alert. Listen to the song of life in the human kingdom, life awakened to self-consciousness, aspiring, looking upwards, striving to grow, to change the earth, to explore the depths of space and the depths of the ocean. Life dreaming, soaring, seeking to understand the way of nature. Life expressing itself in all the hopes and fears, in countless tongues of humans everywhere. In every human heart, the song of the one crying out to be heard. Listen to the song of life in the great Deva kingdom, in nature's spirits, fairies, helping to shape all life to beauty. The mighty devas of lakes, mountains, forests, eager to cooperate with humanity. The devas of healing, angels of inspiration, invisible agents of God's presence. Listen to the song of life as it carries us from the great ones who have moved beyond our humanity, the saviors of our race, masters of wisdom and compassion, the wise ones, the sages and saints, all those who remain with us as our teachers, who seek to aid us in our search for the light. Store in your heart the melody you hear. Let that song flood your being. Let it flow through you, so that your entire being, your very presence, is a song to aid all life on its upward march toward divinity. Learn from this the lesson of harmony, that every thought, every feeling, every act may this day be harmonious, blessing all I do and think and feel, and bringing to all who I meet the sweet melody of love and understanding, calling forth from each an echoing presence of beauty, that all the world may be a place of peace and wonder. Thank you, everyone, for sharing this intimate moment together. Thank you, children. Thank you, brothers and sisters that I have not met before, but hopefully I can meet next year. Thank you, Florida.
Well, thank you for sharing with us your time, and especially the talk. I mean, very emotional, and I can tell. We certainly will try to be there next year, and we hope that the summer national convention will be in person as well. So hopefully we get to see everyone again.
Yeah, we miss everybody. Yeah. So have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will be sharing resources with you by email. And to your point, Florida, I have scanned this meditation, and you will receive it by email as well through Triet. Yes?
Thank you very much.
You're so welcome.
Yes.
So,
Thank you,
Danelys, thank you very much. So, what is your background? Is it at the headquarters?
Yes, actually, that little bio that that Triet read is a little updated. I've been around more than 12 years. It's about 16 years almost. Yes, I work here at the Society now part-time because I'm teaching full-time as a Montessori teacher. But I work in the library and facilitate study groups there for Olcott as well. And every once in a while, I give a little talk when I can, when the time permits, and join the lodges via Zoom, which has been quite the privilege. I don't have much time in hand for traveling, but I have been to a number of them via Zoom, and it's always such a joy to share from the heart of our home. There is a little bit more of who we are that we bring to to the time together when we are from our cameras and our home. That is a little bit more of a personal touch. I enjoy very much this format, even though we are not physically present. We can definitely sense each other. Yeah. And I originally
so you're gonna be part of the Teal Fest?
Yes, I will be here. Definitely.
Yes.
I will be in the
That
library.
would be
Yes,
fun.
yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Is
I
anyone
think
of
I'll
you
jam
coming?
that.
Is anyone
I
of
think
you
Jam
coming to the
coming
Olcott
up.
experience?
Yes, I'm coming.
Oh, really? Oh, Jamtra, I will see you then. Wonderful.
Yeah, I'll be
Wonderful.
looking forward to meeting you.
Wonderful. I'm not sure if I will be here during the week because I know that you are arriving on Wednesday evening. Is that correct? And then you
Yes.
have sessions on Thursdays and Friday, and then Theosophists will be on the Saturday, if I remember correctly.
Yes, correct.
But yes, I will be in the library helping with whatever is needed over there. And in the morning, we will be opening the whole festival with the prayers of the world religions, and we'll be participating a little bit on that as well. So we get to see everyone early in the morning. So
Looking forward.
thank you. Blessings upon your day.
Okay.
Thank you, Trit, for inviting me. It's been a joy.
Thank you. Let me go ahead and stop the recording.